Okay.
right now. Okay. Great. Okay. I think Jen hasn't, or she's connecting to audio now. I see.
So whenever you want,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
fine.
waiting. I think Jen hasn't connected to audio yet.
Okay.
She might have left her computer. Um, but yeah, no one else is in the waiting room as of right now.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, people might trickle in late. But yeah, we might have a small group today.
Okay.
Hi, Jen. Okay, I think you can go ahead and get started if you'd like. Um, yeah, we're really excited to have you for enhancing relevance for today's churchgoer and non-churchgoer. Um, yeah, so take it away, James.
Well, hi. I'm really glad to be with you and to have this opportunity to talk about this topic. I have put together, um, a piece to use to talk through this, and I'm hopeful that we can also talk about about our own experiences and things that we're thinking about as we go through this. I am Reverend Dr. James Ross. I um, am coming to you as a consultant with Potentials Coaching and Consulting, where I serve in that role. However, I also am um, a local church pastor, or not currently serving in a local church, but was a local church pastor and am ordained in the United Church of Christ and hold that standing. I've also served in the wider church and have held former leadership roles in nonprofits, in government, and philanthropy. And I'm now serving in higher education. And I serve as a coach and a consultant. So we can go to the next slide, if you don't mind. So, and actually the next slide. So the objectives for today's session, and as a reminder, we're focusing on enhancing relevance for today's churchgoers and non-churchgoer churchgoers. Um, I think that we may shift the way that we're going to do this a little bit, just based on the size of the group. But we want to talk about successful examples of enhancing relevance. We want to have some peer conversation, and we'll do that together. Uh, and we'll begin to discern potential new approaches and build community and support. And I hope that we will also have fun. Can we go to the next slide, please? So we don't have to worry as much about this being something that is really time consuming. I sort of limited the questions here because when there are a lot of people, this can take a lot of time. And I really think it's important for people to know who's in the group, who's present, because we need to see each other and need to understand who we're sharing with. And I think that's really valuable. So I think since we're a small group, I'm gonna invite you, Jen, to just share your name, where you serve, your role, and really, we can make this a little bit more personal. Anything that, like, what led you to today's session, what you're hoping to gain, what you're sort of struggling with, or what you're thinking about, if not struggling with.
I think we lost Jen.
Oh,
But Michelle,
okay, Michelle.
yeah.
I'm so interested in this topic because I think it would help me in the conversations I'm having with pastors. I am in Chicago. I'm a bricks and mortars coach, and I also have some other coaching clients. But I apologize. I'm going to have to jump off because I have a conflict that I overlooked today.
Okay. No worries, Michelle. Here. James, do you just want to go through the presentation? We'll be able to send out the recording.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, I can do that.
I'm sorry about this.
No, it's okay. And if anyone else joins, just because I can't see right now, just let me know and I'll try to engage them. I
Okay.
think that I see an email from a note from Jen that she's listening while driving.
Oh,
So, and at any time you can feel free to unmute yourself and chime in, Jen, but I also understand if that's not feasible. So we'll go ahead and let's go to the next slide.
okay.
So I wanted to begin with a ground and reflection, and I wanted to use Howard Thurman's Lord, Lord, open unto me. And so let us just get into that space of reflection. Open unto me light for my darkness. Open unto me courage for my fear. Open unto me hope for my despair. Open unto me peace for my turmoil. Open unto me joy for my sorrow. Open unto me strength for my weakness. The next slide, please. Open unto me wisdom for my confusion. Open unto me forgiveness for my sins. Open unto me tenderness for my toughness. Open unto me love for my hates. Open unto me thyself for myself. Lord, Lord, open unto me. And I wanted to just start with that because I think so often when we are doing this work of church and And especially when we think about relevance and community, so much of what we do is asked to be opened in new ways, um, to community, to God, to whomever we see as divine, to ourselves, um, and wisdom in the spaces where we are confused. So I hope that is a good beginning point for us today. So we can move to the next slide, please. So what I wanted to do today was to spend some time offering a review of the Molo Village case study. And I'll share more about Molo Village as we go through. I had anticipated some small breakout groups and some sharebacks, but maybe we'll see what happens. And we'll go from there. So we will be attentive to the spirit and to the universe as we go through today. So let's move to the next slide. So what I am going to be sharing next is from a promotional video called It Takes a Village. It was produced by the United Church of Christ Building and Loan Fund to promote a video, not a full village, but a full video, which tells about the development of Molo Village in a disinvested community in Louisville, Kentucky. And so I'll invite us to just listen to that or view as we're able, and then we'll talk some more about it.
Moment, I'll have to open up in the other tab. Do you see the video?
I see the screen, yes, it hasn't started yet, but.
Great. Okay, let me know if you can hear the sound all right.
So what we did.
In the western of Louisville, 70% of those people are living at or below the poverty level.
We have 2 grocery stores for 67,000 people.
There's a heavy concentration of liquor stores, fast food restaurants, low quality retail. There's a lot of vacancies.
Louisville is 22% black and 85% of those black folks live in West Louisville. That's crazy.
You lose about 12 years of life in Louisville if you drive 4 miles, because if you drive toward the west end, you just lost 12 years of life by moving westward.
The population that is in those cities and in those areas, they suffer, and they suffer from healthcare disparities. They suffer from entrepreneurship. They suffer from food insecurities, housing, almost anything that you can measure when there's historical lack of investment.
It was clear when we came here that there was tremendous need. Nobody else was interested in investing here, in developing projects here. When I see a place like this, I see opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dwayne. Thank you. So I wanted to share that just because it helps to set up the scenario that we're talking about in this case study. So this is a case study for Molo Village, which is based in Louisville. You've heard that it has many of that community, that particular community is facing many of the challenges of disinvested urban areas, but it also reflects challenges that many other places are facing. And more importantly, I want to use this as a way to invite us to think about potential partners, potential ways to consider how we broaden the work that we do, the ways that we listen to community in order to define what our programming is. And I will share with you that this is, Molo Village is a project that was developed by a community development corporation that was established by St. Peter's United Church of Christ in Louisville. So based on my understanding, this was a struggling church in a beautiful building in a disinvested community in Louisville. They were down to 15 members, had moved out of their sanctuary and into a storefront. And following a listening tour, heard from neighbors about what the challenges were that they were facing, the things that they were dealing with in their community, the unmet needs that they were having. The pastor also says that, and if you look at many of the, some of the reporting that was done, neighbors say that, you know, it was a beautiful building, but the neighborhood had no relationship to it because, and to quote at least one of them, we were not invited in. This was a way to invite people in differently. So the church began to think about what would make them relevant in the time, you know, in a new day when they no longer were a church that had hundreds of members. They no longer were doing the type of programming that they had previously done. So ultimately, through this community development corporation, they constructed the Village at West Jefferson, a 2-story, 30,000 square foot building, and they're located on an empty church lot. It's basically, if you look at photos, it is right adjacent to the church building. So if you think about a lot of churches that have parking lots right next to them, that is exactly where this is located. It was a $7.9 million project, and it now houses a financial institution, meaning a bank, real estate office, business incubator, restaurants, and other places have been added. We can go to the next slide, please. In addition, at that location, the church provides services for children, seniors, for job seekers, for returning citizens. And this is a quote from the pastor, Reverend Dr. Jamison Ferguson. We're a one-stop shop. We want to make sure that the people in our community have the things that they need in order to thrive and to be mentally, physically, and financially successful. So that seems really to be the rationale behind what has been done. So there is the church that is in one location, and right adjacent, there is a community, what has become essentially a center for community life. So we can go to the next slide, please. So within the Molo Village, which the pastor says she sort of conceptualized or began to think about while she was on a trip to West Africa, there are 5 program areas, each of which is referred to as a village. One is the Restored Village, and that is the Molo Village reentry programs, which are open to people who are at risk of incarceration or are returning home from incarceration. As you can imagine, in this community, like in many disinvested communities, there are a lot of people who are returning from incarceration, and there are people who are at risk of incarceration. One of the things that I thought was the most unique about it, because I had never heard of anything like this, was that they have a cabinet maker apprentice program, which seems to me, I haven't done the research, but seems like a really powerful type of apprenticeship. People are always needing cabinets, right? People are always doing construction and renovation and those kinds of things. And if you look more deeply at the programming, they offer it in 2 ways. One is several weeks, I think maybe 8 weeks or something like that, and it's basically a full day program that deals not only with the technical aspects of being a cabinet maker, but also deals with things like you know, helping people to develop or strengthen their social skills, to learn financial management, to think about things around leadership, and really to try and address the entire person. So that is done over several weeks. The other way that the program is offered is over the course of a year, presumably for people who are in school or working or something like that. And it's for several hours in the evening, a few days a week over the course of a year, covering the same amount of materials. So you see, that is for me one of the things that was most exciting about the Restore Village. They also have literacy programming, financial management programs, entrepreneurship training, and they offer traditional recovery programs, which every community needs, but also many people who are returning from incarceration have been through those types of programs, or many people in the community are dealing with addiction issues or substance abuse issues. And so that's part of the Restore Village. So can we go to the next slide, please? So the second village is the Healthy Village, which seeks to build bridges across the various types of programming that the Willow Village does to support holistic wellness. Again, understanding that we are all like people with wellness needs across a range of possibilities. So they do things like HIV testing. In the era of COVID, it's important to note that they have COVID self-test kits and offer testing. They do mental health referrals. They do case management referrals. Basically, seeks to be a one-stop shop for people to either address presenting concerns such as the need for HIV testing or concerns about COVID, or to seek more intensive care through referral to specialists in the community. So that's the Healthy Village. We can go to the next slide, please. Future Village is really based around children. This is the program is called BYOL, Be Your Own Leader, which provides year-round programming for children in 2nd through 5th grades. That includes after-school tutoring, it includes summer enrichment programs, and it helps children to explore their individual and collective identities as African-American people. This is a predominantly African-American community. Through music, through art, through dance and drama. Then please continue to the next slide. As well as offering literacy programming, what they refer to as moral decision-making and leadership training. So really helping or seeking to help young people become well-rounded individuals and community citizens. Obviously, it's important that they're helping them to build digital competence because that is essential now, and help them to build nurturing adult relationships. So that's another village that they offer. Part of the reasoning behind the village approach also, beyond it being sort of a nice moniker, is that, you know, there is an adage that it takes a village, and each of these sort of depends on a number of folks from a different expertise and community sites to make them reality. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Yes, and we also just had someone join as well, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff, welcome. I don't know what that means. So the next village is the Wisdom Village, the Isadiko Village. And it partners with the church and community organizations to help decrease isolation or loneliness among older people in the community through providing weekly activities such as exercise programs, outings, holiday celebrations, health information, and other types of activities. And the idea is really to help people remain active, to decrease feelings and experiences of loneliness, and be supportive in other ways. Among the activities that they've offered are martial arts training, jewelry making, healthy eating, meal planning, and a variety of others that you can see, including game day outings, arts and crafts, and the like. So really just seeking to make sure that older people are connected. And then And then the Empowered Village really seems to incorporate everything that they're doing, which is about helping residents to live into their own self-improvement plans, by supporting them through all of this programming and through the referrals. But the other thing is about like financial empowerment, right? A lot by helping people have access to some of the things that people in many communities take for granted, like decent retail and office services, seeks to attract private and public sector providers to provide access to employment and things like job training, housing, and other supportive services. And significantly, because this is a 30,000 square foot facility in this community, it provides opportunities for small businesses to be able to rent places to locate. So Jeff, I want to just welcome you. And if you would not mind, I want to invite you to introduce yourself. What I'd asked earlier, and you get to be the person who does it, is for folks to provide their name, their where they serve, and their role there. And I think if you don't mind, it'll be great since we're such a small group. I would invite you to share like what sort of draws you today, what in particular you are struggling with, thinking about, working on around relevance in your either worship community or other contexts.
Hey, thanks. I am the pastor of a small church in Queens, the First Presbyterian Church of Forest Hills. We have some community groups that are using our space. There's a chess club, there's an after-school club, there's a couple of anonymous groups, there's a musical theater improv group. So we have organizations that are using the space. The space has its own limits because it was built over 100 years ago. And so it's having multiple organizations using it at the same time gets to be problematic. And all of these groups are nonprofits. So, they're not paying for the space completely. And so the struggle is both economic and theological because, let me just say, I'm not a capitalist. So I'm not trying to profit from the church property. I'm trying to make it so it's sustainable as a community resource. But we're in a rather privileged part of New York City. And so it's not like we have people that are struggling economically. We do have some homeless people from time to time, but for the most part, it's middle class, and so finding a way that this ministers or brings something of value, and so we've done some free concerts, classical music, jazz music, trying to pay performers for their art that they really don't get a chance to do very often. As a matter of fact, we got a concert coming up a week and a half from now. So it's jazz pianist, and we're trying to get people to come and listen. So I'm hoping from this that I might get some ideas, get some new insight or some thoughts that we haven't thought of yet, and that's primarily why I dialed in. Thanks.
Great, thank you. So I appreciate that you shared that. So this is obviously one case study. I'm going to talk about some other examples of things that I know are going on as well. And it is my hope that this is an opportunity, to sort of reflect on the specifics of this initiative, but also hopefully it sort of helps to ignite some possibilities. One of the things that I shared, and I'm not sure how much of the of this you've been present for was that so this is looking at a project that is taking place in Louisville, Kentucky, that is in a community that I would say is in many certainly economically different from where you're serving. It's a disinvested community. But what I think is really important is that this entire project, which is significant, and we can talk more about it, or you can sort of see this. You can take a look back through the recording or later. But they began this work after doing having a lot of conversations with folks in the community about what they wanted and what was needed, or what they desired, or their dreams, or their visions for their community, which I think is relevant in every community. But let me just let me just move forward a little bit, and then we'll come back and chat a little bit more, maybe. Well, definitely. So can we go to our next slide? That may be the last one that's relevant. Okay. In this community, the other part of the Empower Village was promoting local community wealth by capturing some of the money that was currently being spent outside of the community and focusing on things like financial literacy, credit counseling, homeownership training, et cetera. That's specific to that community. Okay, and I think that is where we were. Can we go to the next slide? I think this is where we're gonna talk. Yeah, going to the small groups. So we can maybe stop sharing for the moment. So yeah, I'm just trying to think of the best way to have this conversation. So to the extent that you were able to, let's talk about what would be helpful during the time that we have left. And for me, I think if you can sort of contextualize a bit more about sort of how you've been thinking about things. But yeah, what would be helpful for you during this time? And I know it will be probably helpful to hear from some other folks who are working on this. And I'll share what I can in the absence of other attendees today. So what I can share that I don't think is directly applicable to your situation there either is, so I previously served at a church. And I think, I don't know if I talked about this last time I presented, but I served at a church in Washington, D.C. that was located near, it was downtown. And the building it was the second building that the church had owned, and it was rather it had become old, not hundreds of years old, but it was an older building and needed a lot of repair. And the decision that was made, and this was a congregation that had some means, right? I wouldn't say people were necessarily wealthy, but it certainly wasn't. People weren't, it was a very solidly middle class congregation. Ultimately, that church decided to demolish this building. I mean, it wasn't historically significant. Rebuilt from the ground up. It was done during the time when, before the market crash in terms of housing. And so the idea was that there would be above the facility these affordable housing. So the idea was always that the church was going to build back a smaller sanctuary, and then the rest of the space and then they would build the rest of the space out to make it useful to the community, right? So, for example, there is an office for the homeless service provider, which probably isn't as relevant for you, or maybe it is, I don't know. That the sanctuary was intentionally built without any sort of iconography, so that lots of different kind of groups, any kind of permanent iconography, right? like the cross that's there is on the wheels and you roll it out. I mean, it's nicely done, right? But so that it doesn't become a deterrent to anybody. So like all of the arts organizations, well, many of the arts organizations like have events, concerts in there because it's acoustically really wonderful, right? The housing piece did not work out because of the market at the time, but the transition was to locate basic business space. I mean, but it was in an area that where there was lots of demand for that, right, at the time. And also public parking, paid parking underneath the building, right? So it became a really, for that church, it was a way to enhance community viability and to be more visible in the community and sort of without trying to be a capitalist, right? To like ensure that they could pay for programming and such. Actually, technically, what they did was sold the air rights so that the building the corporate entities could be above. So that's that. That's one very specific type of model. But we can talk about others because that doesn't sound exactly aligned with what you're looking to do either. But let's talk more about what you're hearing and what you're thinking to the extent that you want to.
So in the Presbyterian Church and in New York City, you've got multiple groups who are stakeholders. You've got City of New York, you got the State of New York Attorney General who has to approve any sale of church property or any long-term leases or that sort of thing. You've got the congregation, and then you've got the Presbytery of New York City. And so negotiating all of that for any kind of real estate development is a very long process, and any one of them can veto it at any time. If the congregation doesn't have the stomach for it, that's, if the presbytery says, yeah, no, if the attorney general says, nope, so it, what I've been looking at is how do we make the most with what we have right now? And then as it gets to the point where we need to do something with the space because we are using it to its maximum and we need more, then we look at it. Because until then, the field of dreams concept doesn't always work. There are a lot of churches that have built it and they aren't coming anymore. And so now you're stuck with this boat anchor that's just dragging you down financially. And all of the money that you're trying to do now gets sucked into trying to maintain the building rather than doing something else. So I'm not sure I have any real answers. I'm just looking for ideas more. And that's why some of the things that our congregation really resonates with are performing arts, art in general, education, things like that. And what I'm looking for personally is ways to partner with other congregations, so that, they've got a saying in the Army, never fail alone. And we do so much of that as churches. We're trying to do everything by ourselves. And so there's not a lot of churches in our community, Protestant churches. It's a very Jewish neighborhood. A lot of people coming here from China, where there are no real church, not a lot of church presence in mainland China. So it's a very interesting situation. We actually are, trying to figure out how do we do this where, we're in an area where, people just don't go to church, ours included. So trying to make ourselves relevant to the neighborhood. And that's one of the things that I was hoping also. That's part of the reason I'm here.
So, thank you for that. I wonder about, I mean, you specifically mentioned church partners, but are there other potential partners in the effort that you're talking about?
Don't know. We're trying to develop relationships with community organizations, Jewish organizations. Yeah, we're inching along that path.
Yeah, because it seems to me, and I don't know the specifics of the situation, but it seems to me that that would be a productive approach, especially given. I actually think it could be more productive than partnering with other churches in the community because it may bring in folks who you wouldn't necessarily touch otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you, and since you're looking at art stuff specifically, I wonder if you have been in conversation with any of the major arts organizations about the spaces where they're seeing, where they have desire or seeing opportunity or lack or need or anything like that.
That's a good, no, I don't know them. Partly because
Yeah.
I'm not an artist myself,
Yeah,
and I'm not from New York City. I moved here 4 years ago. And so, just in time to watch the whole city close for a couple of years. And,
yeah, I
so,
hear that. Well, I
so
say that
learning
because I
more.
think that I just always recommend that. I don't think it is wise usually to sort of feel like you have to create something brand new. I think look at what exists and figure out how you can partner with that. I would imagine that I don't know the arts organizations that would be most relevant to your area, but I think I would assume, right, that they have some kind of strategic plans or some kind of vision that might include being more present and visible in the community, right? So what would it look like to try and do that in partnership with you?
I mean, we're right next door to a public elementary school. There's, we don't have families in our church, but there's families that live around here. We have an after school program that people bring their kids to, so, and that's the other thing as far as arts, there's a natural connection to people in the neighborhood that might be interested in art.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that comes to mind for me is conversations with, I don't know what college or university will be closest to you that has an art program, but having some conversations with some of the leadership of the art program there, not with the idea that you're gonna have people come in for free. I don't think that's what you're looking for at all, right? But like, I think like what would it look like? I mean, since you're working with young people already, what would it look like to have like a program that is led by an upperclassman who is an art major working with students for a finite amount of time? Especially if you're doing after school stuff, right? Like what would that look like? I mean, I would just think about those kinds of possibilities as you look to grow the program, right?
So an after school art program, that's interesting.
Yeah. So you said arts, and was there something else that you said was a desire?
Just music.
Arts and music. Yeah, I would sort of offer the same for those two. Um,
No, those are good ideas. Thank you.
yeah. And I wonder, in terms of the music, like, I don't know how,
So there's two categories of musicians who struggle, classical and
yeah,
jazz. Neither one of them pay because they're not popular forms of music. And so, and yet they're both difficult. They take years of practice.
yeah,
And there's an irony there, you know. So back in the long time ago, you know, churches would sponsor the arts as patrons. Otherwise, we'd never see Michelangelo, you know, and we'd never hear Mozart.
mhm,
So, you know, the idea of collaboration with artists and art is, I think, a fairly natural one too.
yeah. And I'm wondering, so do you have, when you mentioned classical, it just made me think about this. Do you have a pipe organ at your church?
We have an electronic organ.
Yeah, an electron. Have you ever been in conversation with an organist guild?
I didn't know such a thing existed.
Yeah, yeah. And they do, they're often looking for like concert locations for their folks. But the other thing is they have like various funding programs. Like I know there was one that would provide funding to um, grants. I don't remember if it was specifically for churches or if churches were just one of the categories um, to allow for arts for organ instruction. So you know that's a way to. So I would just look at I think it's the National Organist Guild, but there will most certainly be a local chapter of it, and just look and see what they have and offer. Yeah,
Interesting, interesting. No, never thought of that.
yeah,
It's hard to find organists. It's a dying art.
yeah. It is. It really is. And so, yeah, I think those are some of the things that come to mind for me as
Those are
places to
great.
begin. Okay, good.
Those are great. I appreciate that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're not far from public transportation, so people can get here.
That's perfect. Yeah.
We're not right on the main route, you know, a couple blocks away, but it's not difficult. So um, that gives us a bit of an advantage.
Yeah, I think that's the overall comment that I would make is to think about who is doing who is working with the kind of folks that you want to work with or who might want to, right? Rather than thinking about like church partners and such, but like think about like the arts partners, which is not to say to discount the others, right? But and think about the ways that you might be able to and just ask to have conversations with them about the work that you're looking to do.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I have. Do you have any other thoughts or anything else that we can?
No,
Okay.
I this is what I'm here for. I mean, you know,
Okay.
I'm like, because like you said, confronting the reality of, you know, building something is an iffy proposition. How do I make the most of what I have to make that to the point where there's an increased demand for the use of the space? And
Right.
then building, then I can go to the city and say, look, we have need for a community center here. Look at all we're doing. Will you help us? And you know, there's funding for some of that for community centers. We don't have
Right.
one within several blocks. And so that, you know, where if I'm trying to build affordable housing, I've got a community board that's going to rise up in arms.
Yeah.
and they're going to say, not in my backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's hard to say, no, I don't want classical music in our neighborhood, you know?
Yeah.
And if it makes enough money, then now I can use that for underserved communities. And that's
Right.
really
I
what
mean,
this is about.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's really important to know what the place where you are is uniquely suited to do and is capable of doing, right? And part of that is by eliminating the things that you know aren't gonna work, right? Like, so if you know it's not gonna be affordable housing, there's no point in even going down that road, right? But if there's an appetite for, and you have a special interest in like the music and arts piece, then I think that's worth exploring, and it can be a really valuable and powerful piece. I mean, yeah, it would be powerful to be known as the sort of the church that, you know, the sort of arts and music church, right? That's doing all this great stuff. Um, and I think it also is not only an opportunity for you to move forward your agenda, but it also benefits the arts organizations, right? Because it makes sense for them to have a deeper connection in the communities in the ways that you're talking about. So, yeah. So, Delaney, what shall we do now?
Yeah. Well, we had Sheila come in. I'm not sure.
Oh, is she here?
Yes, Sheila Beckford.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Sheila. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing fine. We're just talking a bit about um, uh, being and remaining relevant in communities. And so I wonder if you would just introduce yourself. What I asked Jeff to do was to share his name, his role, and where he is serving, as well as anything in particular that you are like, sort of what brings you here today, anything in particular that you're thinking about, struggling with, working on along these lines. I will tell you that this seminar time is occurring a little bit differently than I had anticipated, because I sort of anticipated a little bit larger group and has structured around that, but I always think it works out as it needs to. So would you be willing to share with us a bit?
Sure. I'm Reverend Sheila Beckford. I'm pastor of John Wesley United Methodist Church in Brooklyn, New York. Basically, the title intrigued me, and so that's why I'm here. We have been working on, well, we have a summer camp called Liberation Through the Fine Arts. And we teach kids they have vocal training, piano lessons, drama, dance, STEAM program, academics, things of that nature. And then we do the showcase at the last day for the parents and community. We've been doing that for 3 years, and it's been going well and exciting. So this year we put together a STEAM program for a Saturday STEAM program from 10 to 2. We haven't gained a lot of interest in that. We also created a homeschool program because a lot of our young people are being homeschooled, pulled out of school and being homeschooled. And we haven't garnered a lot of interest in that area as well. as far as church is concerned about rather being relevant, we do have an organist, a musician rather, and I think our church wants to remain stuck because he's not, he is not really up to date with playing and reaching others, that other people who are under 60. So that's basically our main issue at our church.
Okay. So thank you. I mean, I'm intrigued that you are doing some of the programming that it sounds like Jeff, maybe in a different way, is looking to do. Did you happen to hear him talking about where he sees their vision?
I heard some of it.
Yeah. So in terms of the personnel issue, I don't know how to speak to that one. That does seem like something that the church is going to have to reflect on and make some have some discernment around. But in terms of, so Jeff was just saying that he is seeking to, you know, have his church become more. Well, you can. I don't need to speak for you, Jeff. Will you just summarize what you sort of articulated?
Sure. We were looking to use the church as it exists now as more of a resource for groups that, one, are looking for space, and two, our congregation is interested in just naturally as being part of who they are. And so we have people in the congregation who are interested in art and in performing arts and in music. And so it's natural for us to try to develop more of a relationship with organizations doing that and invite them into our space. I love what your liberation through the fine arts. Wow, I wish I could steal that phrase. That's just perfect. You know, I think James Cone would like that title too. You know, so I wrote that down. I'm not going to steal it, but I might borrow some parts of it because that sounds exactly on point. And that's that intersection of the human spirit and the Holy Spirit, where you see an opportunity to expand and transcend, you know, the average experience of just being human, where the arts give us an opportunity to go into a spiritual space. And so I really like that.
Thank you.
I want to invite you at your convenience, Sheila, to take a listen to the earlier part of the recording, because I sort of talked about, I did a little bit of a case study about one specific church and the work that they did. And it's not necessarily that you'll want to replicate it, but it might ignite some thoughts for you as you are continue to think about this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wonder if you can, if you don't mind, if you would be willing to share just a little bit about how your church got started with doing the arts programming that you're doing now, particularly, so I wouldn't put you in smaller groups earlier. So one of the questions would have sort of led you, I think, to this conversation. But I wonder if you can talk about how you got started doing that. And I'm interested, particularly as Jeff looks to think about moving more into this area.
Sure. Well, when I was younger, I was one of the first groups to attend I think it was the first school that had singing and drama and performing arts junior high school.
Mm.
And it was we learned later in life when we became adults that it was a test case that they were doing, that the DOE was doing to see how the arts impact learning.
Mm.
And those of us who were in the school and went to school for the right reasons, they saw that all of our grade levels increased because of the arts. And so when I came to this church as the pastor, when I was appointed to this church as the pastor, I thought to myself, well, if that worked for me as a child, then I'm sure it can work for other children, build their self-esteem and help them academically as well. And so I got the young people of the church to come together, and I shared the vision with them, and they thought it was a great idea. And so we started to market it in the community, put up banners and posters. I actually got a real actor to teach drama and theater. I reached out to a minister who played in a church in Brooklyn and asked if he would be able to teach vocal and piano, and he was able to do so. I got a professional dancer that I knew to come in to teach dance. And then we got a sports director from a school in Brooklyn to lead the sports. And we had a teacher to lead the academics. And so we all came together. We talked about what it should look like, or what we think it should look like. And as it was unfolding, we did change here and there, based on the kids' personalities. And we had children who were autistic, children who were had behavioral issues. We had a nonverbal child. Well, they thought she was nonverbal until she got into this program, and then she started to speak a little bit. We had children from all across the spectrum participate. We only had 13 children, but within those 13, it felt like we had about 30 children because of their personalities and where they were on the spectrum. So it turned out to be very well received by the parents. The children loved it, and so they spread the word, and so people started to come and wanted to come every year.
That's incredible. And I heard too, well, one thing I really heard clearly is that you had this idea, and then you sort of what do you call it, vetted it with other folks in the church. You talked to like the youth and other folks, and so that sounds really important. And then you really made sure that you attended very closely to the quality of it by bringing in like these professional folks to do things, so that people can have that level of confidence and to have, so that it will be worthwhile for them. So that sounds really really meaningful to me. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm curious, so did the church, was this all self-funded, or were you able to obtain external funding for it?
We charged the fee, and then we also received 2 grants.
Great. That's great. Wow. That's great. Jeff, do you find any of that helpful?
Oh, yeah. I think what's really interesting too is there is a huge need everywhere for programs for neurodivergent people. And so that cuts across all economic strata and all ethnic groups. So yeah, we got a grant from the city for some programming for cultural events. So it's helpful hearing that there's a model for how to grow from that. So yeah, I wrote down here music lessons, you know, performing art and programs for Sheila had mentioned a couple of times people on the spectrum, and that's private schools don't want to do that. So if you create something where that is offered, yeah, a lot of parents are looking for that. Thank you. Thank you. Good idea.
So thank you. So, and Sheila, is there any way this small group gather can be helpful, more helpful to you before we wrap up our time today?
No, I'll just go back and look at the video, and I hope if I have any questions, I guess I can reach out to Delaney, and then she can forward. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really appreciate your willingness to share. I think that it's always helpful when people like hear what other folks are doing. So I am sure that Jeff has benefited significantly from this, and I regret that we don't maybe haven't been as helpful to you. And maybe we can find a way to do that after you see the video and everything. I'm certainly happy to be supportive and helpful in the ways that I can. Yeah. There was one other point that I was gonna make, but I don't know what it was. So,
Yeah.
Jeff,
Sorry.
Delaney, anything else? I mean,
I'm just curious, real quick. It's a little off topic, maybe not. Sheila, are you in a UMC church? United Methodist?
I am.
Okay, because the UMC has gone through a big thing about LGBTQ ministry. That's an opportunity also, because last summer we were one of 2 faith communities in Queens that were in the Queens Pride Parade with a banner. Everybody said, thank you for being here. The fact that there were only 2 of us out of all of Queens shows how little there is as far as for people in that community finding a home. So you might want to say, as a Methodist church, we're welcoming and affirming, and that might increase your outreach and use of the space.
thank you for that, Jeff.
Thank you.
Well, I think maybe I will do my little close, and I know that Delaney has some things to do at the end. So thank you both for being here, and thank you, Delaney, for your work. Do you mind sharing you know what? Yeah, do you mind sharing that screen one more time? The deck, if you have it handy.
Let me see.
I might be able to I can just, you know what, don't worry about it. I'll just pull up what I was gonna do. So often when I preach or when I go someplace and talk to a group, I use this closing. When I served at First Congregational Church in Washington, DC, I would use it. But you know what, before I do that, let me do this. Let me do one thing. So I know that Sheila has sort of said that that she's going to go back and watch the video. So that's so that I think that maybe counts for this for her. Jeff, is there like one next step that you plan to take after today?
Sure. I'm going to contact arts organizations and look for the Organist Guild to see where that leads. And so those are two specific things, and I appreciate that.
Great. Okay, excellent. Thank you. So this is a closing. When I served at First Congregational Church in Washington, D.C., we were planning a special program and we commissioned the contemporary hymn writer, Mary Keith Dunn, to write an additional verse for a hymn. And she did, and I loved it so much that I have used it sort of as a benediction or closing whenever I'm doing something. And I'll share that with you today. It is included in the PowerPoint, so you'll see it there. But it goes as follows. We are still a people dreaming. Love alone can drive out hate. Love can counter selfish scheming and put an end to harsh debate. So dream with us and add your voices. Sing of all that love can do. Practice love till earth rejoices. Sing until our dream comes true. I always like to end with that because that speaks to my heart and the things that I'd like to see us do. So thank you so much. Delaney, do you wanna, I turn it back over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thank you. I think that was great. I think definitely with the recording, people will watch and, get a lot of value from hearing about Sheila and Jeff's, situations and stuff. And just, yeah, definitely heard a lot of great ideas. And I think, that's one of the main focuses of our congregations is, finding out how to tap in like to the community more. And yeah, I think that'll just definitely be very helpful. But before Sheila and Jeff, before you leave, I just have a short survey, if you could fill that out. And then, yeah, I will post the recording soon and send more information in the newsletter. So stay tuned.
Thank you so much.
Yes.